In this video, I would like to talk to you about how I come up with my story ideas.
You can't say you didn't see this coming. Finally got some inspiration right again.
Hi, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is the first video you're watching. My name's Hananya and I create writer-related content. I have recently put out some videos on all of my unfinished projects, and they're basically ideas. They're not necessarily anything concrete. Some of them are, but most of them are just some general ideas. And I figured I would do a video on how I actually come up with the ideas, or how these ideas have kind of come to be, so that if you are struggling to come up with any story ideas, or you're wondering how other people do it, then hopefully this video can help you kind of figure out how I come up with my story ideas, and it might help you get inspired and create some awesome stories. So for me personally, I come up with story ideas in a lot of different ways. My story ideas can come from anything, honestly. They can come from things that happen in my daily life, they can come from dreams I have, or from books that I read, articles that I read online, or shows that I watch, or movies that I watch. It can honestly be anything. Moral of the story: if you are trying to come up with a story idea, I would suggest looking at some movies that you enjoy watching, or some series that you like watching. Look at your favorite books, or books in general that you enjoyed, and see what you can change. Write down what you like about the stories, and then do the what if. So I feel like what if is gonna be your best friend when you are trying to come up with a story idea. That is usually how I come up with my story ideas. I always look at something and my brain instantly goes to what if, and then it's usually what if this happened, or what if this person wasn't like this, but what if this person was someone else, or what if we don't have these two people meeting up as romantic interests, but what if it becomes a totally different character, or what if their scenario is different? What if I take this story and I put it into a different world? What if we take these characters, kind of their initial character traits and flaws, but we put them in a totally different scenario, totally different story? That is kind of how I do my story ideas, if that makes sense. I will try and see if I can come up with an example from my unfinished projects list. Let me take one that would make sense. So if you have not watched my videos on my unfinished projects, I would suggest you go watch them. They kind of just go through quickly on each story idea that I have, and some of them already kind of explain how I got the story idea or where it came from. So I will make sure to leave a link in the description below to part 1 and part 2 of my unfinished projects tag, and I will also make sure to leave some links in the cards as well for you to check out. To go back to my unfinished projects list that I have, I am going through now to see which I can use as an example. What I initially already see for an example on how you can come up with your story idea is, if you have anything that you enjoy watching, or any series or movies or stuff like that, something that can help is writing fan fiction. And I know that there might be, some backlash on fan fiction, but I think fan fiction is a really good way to start writing, because you know the story and you know the characters and you know the world they're set in, so you just come up with a different story with those characters, or you try and write like a spin-off off of the series that you're watching or something like that. It can really help kind of kickstart your brainstorming. You can come up with ideas kind of faster because you already know the characters and you know the world is set in and everything. So that might help you come up with a storyline that you enjoy. And then you can kind of build on top of that. Once you want to create your own original content, you can kind of take what you've learned from writing about characters that you already know and do it that way. So that is definitely something that I've done a lot in the past. I have a lot of stories that are fan fiction that I wrote when I was younger. So I have, for example, the Camp Rock 3 one, where I just took the idea of Camp Rock and turned it into a different idea, or added a character into the mix, And that is kind of what I come up with for that story idea. Then another one that I can give you as an example is Forgotten Moon, which was basically a fan fiction on Twilight. You know, you gotta love or hate it. It's whatever you want to do. But for me and my friend, we kind of started writing a different kind of ending, I guess, to the Twilight books. And we started writing this before the last part came out, I think, for the book-wise. So we didn't know the full story yet, and that's kind of how we wrote that one. One of the examples that I can show you or tell you about is a story that I kind of have kickstarted off of just movies and series in general, where the characters are different. They have some sort of ability that is different than a human. And I have this one idea where I want the characters to be genetically altered and enhanced so that they have a faster like healing system and stuff like that, so that if they have like a wound or something, their cuts will heal like much faster and stuff like that. That is kind of what I came up with based on like sci-fi movies that I watched and just in general kind of these things. It helps to kind of pick off of what you liked about stories. I kind of, for example, I like this kind of character for my main characters, so I will add that to the mix. I kind of like the idea of having them be genetically altered, so I add that idea to the mix, and then I try to come up with a story that would kind of make sense around those things. And that is how I come up with some of my story ideas. Other story ideas I come up with just based on kind of dialogue that pops into my head, or something that someone says, or it can be just what happens in general in the world right now. One of the ones that I have on my list that only has 16 words is the quarantine one, which I didn't write, but it basically, you know, what it is about. It came up in my head that, you know, we are going into quarantine as a world 2 years ago. We obviously had a lot of things to think about and to change, because we did go into the quarantine, and some of the advice is write what you know, and obviously we didn't know what life was going to bring us with quarantine, but I thought, you know, I could write something like that. I ended up not doing it because I didn't feel like it, and I felt like a lot of people were doing it already, so I didn't necessarily feel the need to actually write it. But it's something that you can definitely take as something from the real world, so to speak, to take into your stories and to see if that is something that you could turn into an interesting story idea. Think, for example, about a lot of the movies that say based on true events. I always really enjoy those movies because they are based on true events. So if you can come up with something that you know is happening right now and you can take that into your story, either make it based on true events if you really want to follow that kind of journalistic aspect of story writing, or you can just take what you like about the stories and turn it into something that's interesting. Another story idea that I can share with you based on how I got my idea is I watched the new Winx show. I think it's called like something Fate. Let me check. So it is called Fate, the Winx Saga. So if you have not watched that show, go watch it. It's kind of, I liked it. It's a nice show. That show kind of involves magic, and I don't usually write anything magic related, so that is probably why I didn't pick up this story. But one of the things that is on my unfinished project list is a story that kind of kickstarted from watching this show. It revolves around, like I said, a lot of magical stuff, and that kind of kickstarted an idea in my brain of, okay, so this character in the show is this and has these abilities. How can I make this into a different interesting story if I wanted to do that? And that is kind of what kickstarted this idea, because I kind of outlined what would affect her abilities and how her abilities would kind of play out, and I came up with like a different kind of way for the abilities to work, and it kind of kickstarted some like dialogue and things that I was thinking about as I was kind of just thinking about this story more and more and more. So that is kind of how I came up with that one. I came up with one recently as well where I don't even know how that one came to be. I feel like I was just in bed and I started to think about that story. So that is kind of what happens to me a lot. I'm either laying in bed or I'm in the shower or I'm driving, where your brain is kind of relaxed and it's not thinking about anything else, and it's just kind of in that zone, I guess. And that's when I come up with some of my story ideas, which is not always very convenient when you're driving, but it does happen sometimes. So one of the things I always tell everyone that tells me, oh, I come up with a story idea, write it down. No matter if you think you're going to use it or not, just write it down, because you never know if you're going to use it in the future. That's why I have a full list of story ideas that I might never use, but I have them there just in case, and I have them there in case I want something to write about, something like that, or if I'm just searching for a new thing or something that excites me, something that can inspire me, and I'm not currently coming up with any ideas, I can reference that list and I can actually check out what I have come up with in the past. And as I was looking through all of my projects for the unfinished projects tag, I got super excited to work on some of these ideas, because I started remembering what I was excited about when I had these stories in my brain all the time. Because usually what happens to me is I come up with a story idea and it just lingers in my brain until I write it down. So always make sure you write it down, because sometimes it happens that you think about it a lot and you have a lot of things figured out, and then you don't write it down and you don't remember afterwards, which has definitely happened to me before. So that is why I tell you to always make sure to write your story ideas down, no matter if you're going to use it or not. It doesn't matter, just write them down so you have it out of your brain and you can actually move on to a different story idea if you have too many, like me. But it also helps you to brainstorm, because if you have written down something now, it just helps you to brainstorm something in the future again, because you've already done it. A completely different way that I come up with story ideas as well, which is something that I just saw when I checked out my list, is it can be song lyrics. Sometimes a song lyric can really kind of jog something in my brain, or I can be like, oh, I really like this song. This song is a song about this and this kind of story. How can I write this into a story that is cute and something that I would want to read? And that is kind of how I come up with things as well. One of the examples is Polaroid, as in like Polaroid picture. There is a song that's called Polaroid. If you've not listened to it, Google it. It's a cute kind of song, and I've always listened to it until one day I listened to it in a totally different way. I don't know how it kind of entered my brain differently that time, but I started listening to it and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you actually took a Polaroid at a party and then wrote your number on it? Because this song does talk about doing kind of like, you take a Polaroid, you wrote your number on it or name or something like that. And I figured I could do that in a story idea, right? We could have the couple or these two people that don't know each other take a Polaroid picture, and then they can meet up at some other time and be like, I still have your Polaroid, or something like that. You know, it's simple things like that that you can turn into something kind of cool or something that you enjoy reading. So hopefully this kind of helps you come up with story ideas if you are unsure how to do that. I definitely have way too many, so I don't need any more tips on how to come up with them. But if you have any good tips you want to leave for anyone in the comments below, then please do so that other people that might want to find out how to create story ideas or how to come up with them can reference those tips, and maybe I will actually take pointers from you guys in the comments too, because you know, story ideas can always be better, because otherwise you end up with supernatural-ish thing that doesn't have any information on it. So yes, please do leave something in the comments if you have any tips or tricks on how you usually come up with your story ideas, so that other people can check out how you do it, and maybe we can all come up with amazing story ideas together. So yes, if you find any of these tips helpful, let me know, because that definitely helps me create more of these videos that you might enjoy watching. So quick recap on what you should be doing: watch movies, watch series, look at what you liked, write down what you like, what you could change, and ask yourself the question, what if? Just ask yourself that all the time. What if I was in this situation? What if we changed this character? What if we put them in a different setting? That kind of stuff. Just always ask yourself, what if the situation was different? It can be setting, it can be characters, it can be anything you want it to be. Just change something up. And that is something that I do. So watch movies, watch series, read books, read articles, just whatever you can think of, listen to music. Just always kind of try and think of, oh, what would I do in this situation? How could I make this more interesting? What if this happened? And that is how I do it, honestly. There is also a lot of platforms that you can check out to find story prompts and stuff like that, where it will generate some information for you that will help you write your stories. If you're looking for any of those platforms, I will try and leave some in the description below for you to check out. I know that there are some generators that can generate a plot for you, or kind of like an inciting incident or something like that. And I will try and find some, because I think there are plenty out there. But yes, I will try and find some for you, so that if you are wondering how to best approach this, and if this video didn't help you come up with anything yet, I can hopefully point you to some generators in the links. So that was kind of it for this video. It's kind of a short one. It's kind of one where I just ramble about how I do things, and hopefully that will help you a little bit in the future with your story ideas. So yeah, I will probably do some more videos on how I do things, and maybe put in some tips on how I do it, and that might help you. So if you want to see more of that, please make sure to stick around. And with that, I will leave you and wish you a happy day, and hopefully see you next time. Come to fruition. Hold on. I hope you can come up with, I feel like I help a lot. Okay, let's do some thumbnails.